The storms, epic storms, in fact, of the last few weeks that have been experienced in some of our cities remind us of the importance of the resiliency efforts that each of you have to lead. Share with us a bit of how the transit strategies fit within your resiliency efforts.
Well, one of the exciting things we did last year is I put a huge bond on our ballot. And am I allowed to give the punchline now?
Go for it.
It passed by, are you ready? 82.4% of the vote. That deserves an applause.
Yes,
okay. It's like nearly all my voters said, yes, please raise my taxes to fix the damn roads. But the beauty was it wasn't just roads, it was also community facilities, it was also affordable housing. But we actually put a resilience requirement into the bond. Oh. So before we can issue the bonds, we actually have to do an analysis of the projects to demonstrate, one, how they advance social and geographic equity, as well as how they advance resilience. And so it's just a different mindset. Instead of just repaving a road, we're asking ourselves, can we add bike lanes? Can we improve the pedestrian experience? Can we put filters into the storm drains along this street to capture trash before it goes out into our bay? Can we add bioswales? We also are participating in the Resilient by Design competition, where we are admitting we don't know all the things that we need to do about our infrastructure now to prepare ourselves. Particularly, we are very much a coastal city, to prepare for sea level rise, which we already know will impact low-income communities of color first and worst. And so just requiring ourselves to think about this as a rule, as a condition before we can spend this precious bond money, I think is part of a shift in a mindset, as well as just having a resilience plan and playbook. We're about to celebrate our 1-year anniversary of having our resilience plan out and getting implemented. So those are some of the things we've done.
Yeah, I think, 1846, Pittsburgh burned to the ground. In 1936, it was flooded to the point where the entire central business district was under 2 stories of water. And then in 1979, it was economically destroyed. And the common thread throughout all of that was nobody prepared for any of it. The entire idea of the resilience strategy is to identify what the constant stresses are to your city, and then to identify what the shocks could be that would knock your city down. When we look at transit, we look at it as a component of equity. So in our resilience plan, it isn't on its own, but it's a part of so many different parts of it. So when we're talking about affordable housing, you can't have the conversation of affordable housing unless you're talking about transit, mobility, and energy. And you have to look at the costs associated with housing, especially low-income housing. The energy costs are significantly higher than higher income areas. And you've got to be able to address that not only through the efficiency of the home itself, but the delivery of energy. So our plan includes direct energy systems that will have a lower cost and a higher efficiency, as well as components to upgrade the current housing stock by partnering with nonprofit organizations, combining that with transit opportunities in order to make it so that the combined effect will have a more resilient effect on addressing inequity. The 3 biggest areas of inequity, and it's based on race in Pittsburgh, are access to quality health care, including mental health care as well as physical, access to quality education, and access to affordable housing. In each of those have components of mobility as a component of it. How do you get there? How are you able to do it? And that is one of the key areas that we view in the next 30 years as being both a stress and a shock.
Yeah, I think the key to everything that's been said is that resiliency means, it depends on where you are, it may mean something different to you, but we all deal with the health, we all deal with the safety resiliency that we have to deal with. Pittsburgh and Denver are probably a little more vulnerable to potential natural weather related type of conditions that will cause us to be a little more resilient. An epic snowstorm, for example, will require our systems to react. And we do have to plan. And one of the things that, I'll just say this with regard to resiliency, because I think the other two mayors hit it really hard, is mayors have to think differently than everyone else in the city. Even from city council members, we can't think in proprietary terms, we can't think myopically, we have to think very broadly. And how this, whatever action we're thinking about will impact the city as a whole, not just this neighborhood, but the city as a whole. And oftentimes that is in contradiction, or at least harder to get to, because people they don't have that vision to think in those terms, but we're not allowed that privilege and of freedom to do that. We have to think about ultimately what it means, not only as a whole, but also in the future. And so as we look at things like building what we call a P2P, a Plat to Park Hill project in Denver, where we're building a drainage system, we're looking at potentially a flooding situation that most people in the city may not have been aware that almost had to evacuate a neighborhood a few years ago because of flooding. And had it breached, and literally we were inches away from a breach, and I would have had to move thousands of residents. Now that never hit the media. That's not something you put out in the public, but that was something we were monitoring. But it underscored the importance in terms of us building this drainage system throughout the city. And so while people may push back on it, they're not seeing really kind of the challenges and potentiality of the problems that the city may face if we don't prepare for these type of events in our city. So, but I just want to lay that out, because we are oftentimes as mayor faced with a different vision and required to think differently than other stakeholders in the community.
I just have to follow up. A labor friend of mine was saying, you know, you've mellowed out. You used to be a firebrand.
Right.
And I said, a council member points out the problem. A mayor fixes it.
Wow, that's it.
A council member uses a megaphone.
Yeah.
A mayor uses a telephone. Yeah. And it's, you have to pivot with how you do it. Yeah.
For all you council members out there, LISC loves you too.
No. If I follow, because that you know, it's reality. Because I used to be that council president. Yeah. I used to love walking into the mayor's office and leaving it and walking out feeling very good. Yeah. And I remember on July the 18th, 2011, the first time I walked in that office after being sworn in, and that door shut, it hit me. There's no one else to leave the problems, you know, to anymore.
And then a council member came to visit you,
Yeah,
right?
I have met the mayor, and he is I. and I mean, it's a whole different perspective. So I appreciate you saying that. And it's not to say that council members, I mean, council members played a role. I've been there. I appreciate, I respect, and have empathy for the role of members of council. But the point is that you're right. You can point it out. We seldomly hear solutions. Our job is to figure it out going forward, and it's a very difficult, challenging job.
And nobody cares if you say, oh no, that's the Department of Transportation's policy. They're the federal government. I don't control them.
No.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, right.
Like, you've got to figure out a way to like work around them, which we do.